In pure shock, the alien woman said, "Humans use this to reproduce?" The cargo bay doors exploded inward, and Lieutenant Jake Morrison hit the deck as shrapnel screamed overhead. The alien boarding party poured through the breach like liquid metal, their crystalline forms refracting the emergency lighting into 1,000 dancing shadows. He rolled behind a supply crate and fired 3 quick bursts from his plasma rifle, watching 2 of the invaders shatter into glowing fragments. "All hands, repel boarders on Deck 7, the captain's voice crackled through the dying comm system. Jake didn't have time to respond before another explosion rocked the freighter and sent him sprawling across the corrugated floor. His rifle skittered away into the darkness. A shadow fell across him, and he looked up to see one of the aliens standing over him. Its body a swirling mass of translucent blue material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. But this one wasn't attacking. It was holding something in what passed for its hands, examining the object with what could only be described as horrified fascination. Jake's combat knife, the standard-issue blade every crew member carried. "What is this weapon?" The alien's voice came through a translator unit clipped to its chest, the words stilted and mechanical. "What horrific purpose does this serve?" Jake blinked, momentarily forgetting he was supposed to be fighting for his life. "That's not a weapon." "Well, it is, but that's not what it's for." The alien recoiled, its body rippling with what might have been revulsion. "Not for combat? Then why does every human carry such a primitive cutting instrument?" "It's a tool," Jake said slowly, pushing himself up to a sitting position. The alien didn't stop him. "We use it for eating, opening packages, cutting rope, whatever we need." "Eating?" The alien's form pulsed with an emotion Jake couldn't identify. "You require mechanical separation of your nutritional matter?" Before Jake could answer, another alien appeared from behind a stack of cargo containers. This one was different, larger, with deeper blue coloration and what looked like rank insignia embedded in its crystalline structure. It moved with authority, and the first alien immediately stepped back. "Commander Vesa," the first alien said, still clutching Jake's knife, "I have discovered something disturbing about the human species." Commander Vesa flowed closer, its form casting strange patterns on the walls. Jake tensed, ready to fight even without weapons, but the commander seemed more interested in the knife than in him. "Explain Ensign Krell. They use primitive cutting tools for daily survival tasks," Krell said, holding up the knife like it was evidence in a trial. "Their food requires mechanical processing before consumption. Their packaging requires violence to open. They carry instruments of separation on their bodies at all times." Vessa's form went completely still, which Jake was starting to recognize as a sign of deep concentration or shock. "Show me more of these tools." Jake carefully reached for his belt, moving slowly to avoid triggering any defensive response. He pulled out his multi-tool and unfolded it, revealing the various implements: pliers, screwdrivers, wire cutters, a small saw, a bottle opener. Carell made a sound that the translator couldn't process, something between a gasp and a warble. "It has multiple violence functions. The humans have mechanized destruction into portable form." "It's just a tool," Jake insisted. "We fix things with it. Build things." "To create through separation and reassembly." The concept seemed to genuinely disturb them, and Jake found himself in the surreal position of defending basic human tool use to crystalline aliens who had just blown a hole in his ship. "How else would you build anything?" he asked. "We grow," Vesa explained. "We shape. We merge and harmonize. We have never needed to cut or separate or destroy to create. Our entire civilization is based on addition, never subtraction." Jake's mind raced. He'd heard of aliens with radically different biology, but he'd never considered how fundamental the difference might be. "So you've never used a blade? Never cut anything?" "Never," Krell said, still holding the knife at arm's length. "The concept is alien to us. Violent. Unnatural." "Then how do you eat?" Jake asked. "We absorb," Vesa said. "We merge with nutritional matter and incorporate it into our structure. There is no separation, no violence, no mechanical processing required." The emergency lighting flickered, and somewhere in the distance Jake heard more explosions. The battle was still raging, but here in this cargo bay, 3 beings from different worlds were having possibly the strangest conversation in human-alien contact history. "Wait," Jake said, a thought occurring to him. "If you've never used cutting tools, how do you perform surgery? Medical procedures?" Carol and Vesa exchanged what might have been a glance, though it was hard to tell with beings that had no obvious eyes. "We regenerate. Vesa said. Our bodies heal and reshape automatically. Medical intervention, as you understand it, is unnecessary. So you've never performed an operation? Never made an incision to fix internal damage? The idea is monstrous, Corell said softly. Jake stood up slowly, brushing debris from his uniform. The situation had shifted from combat to something else entirely, something he didn't have training for. Listen, we're not monsters. We're just different. Our biology works differently than yours. Different? Vesa repeated, and Jake detected what might have been skepticism in the translated voice. You carry instruments of separation on your person. Your ships are filled with tools designed to cut and destroy. What else about your species requires such violence? Jake opened his mouth to respond, but another voice cut through the tension. Lieutenant Morrison, report status. It was Commander Helen Martinez, his superior officer, her voice tight with barely controlled stress as she emerged from behind an overturned cargo loader, weapon raised. She froze when she saw Jake standing casually between two aliens. Commander, hold fire, Jake said quickly. We're having a conversation. A conversation, Martinez repeated flatly, not lowering her weapon. We're being boarded by hostile forces, and you're chatting? They're not hostile right now, Jake said. They're confused. They've never seen cutting tools before. Martinez blinked hard, like she was trying to reset her brain. What? Carol held up the knife again. Your species uses violence for basic survival. We are trying to understand why. Martinez looked at Jake, then at the aliens, then back at Jake. Slowly, she lowered her weapon. You're serious. They're upset about knives. About all tools, Jake corrected. They don't use anything that cuts or separates. Their entire civilization works differently. Martinez holstered her sidearm and approached carefully, her hand never straying far from the weapon. Explain. Vesa's form rippled and shifted, taking on a more compact shape. We are the Valish. Our biology allows us to shape matter through direct molecular manipulation. We grow our structures, our vessels, our technology. We merge and harmonize. The concept of destroying something to build something else is foreign to us. We thought humans were like us, Corell added. When we intercepted your vessel, we expected to find beings who could communicate, who could merge understanding. Instead, we find a species that carries destruction with them everywhere they go. Martinez processed this information with the same methodical approach she used for everything. So this wasn't an attack. This was a misunderstanding. We responded to what we perceived as aggressive tool use, Vesa said. Your cutting beams, your separation devices, your machinery that tears and breaks. To us, this appeared to be a threat. A civilization built on violence. Our mining equipment? Martinez said quietly. You saw us mining asteroids and thought we were weaponizing destruction. Yes, Vesa confirmed. Jake laughed, a sharp bark of sound that made both aliens recoil. We've been shooting at each other because you didn't understand that we need tools to survive. But why? Krell pressed. Why does your biology require such violence? Surely evolution would favor a more harmonious approach to existence. Martinez pulled out her own multi-tool, examining it like she'd never seen it before. Our bodies can't reshape matter like yours can. We can't grow things with our minds or merge with our food. We have to physically manipulate our environment to survive. Tools are how we overcome our biological limitations. Limitations? Vesa said slowly. You see yourselves as limited. Compared to you? Absolutely, Martinez said. You can regenerate damage, reshape your bodies, merge with matter directly. We're fragile. We break easily and heal slowly. We need tools to compensate. Carell's form pulsed with something that might have been distress. This is worse than we thought. Not only do you require violence for survival, but you are also fragile. How does your species persist? Stubbornness mostly, Jake muttered. Martinez shot him a look before addressing the aliens. We persist because we adapt. Yes, our bodies are limited, but our minds are flexible. We invent, we innovate, we find solutions. Tools are one of those solutions. But the violence? Krell insisted. Cutting, tearing, destroying. How can a civilization be built on such foundations? We also build, Martinez countered. We create, we construct, we preserve. The same knife that cuts food also cuts rope to save a drowning person. The same tools that separate also join. It's not about violence, it's about capability. Essa moved closer, its crystalline form catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. Show me. Show me how your tools create rather than destroy. Martinez looked around the cargo bay scattered with debris and damaged equipment. She spotted a section of torn bulkhead, the metal twisted and jagged from the earlier explosion. She walked over to it, pulled out her multi-tool, and began working. Jake watched as she carefully cut away the most dangerous sharp edges, then used the pliers to bend the metal into a less hazardous shape. It wasn't pretty, but it was safe. She'd taken something dangerous and made it safer through careful, controlled cutting. "You see," Martinez said, "the cutting isn't random violence. It's precise, controlled, purposeful." Corell drifted closer, observing the work with what seemed like fascination and horror mixed together. "You damaged the material to make it less damaging." "Yes," Martinez confirmed. "The contradiction hurts my mind," Corell admitted. Bessa was silent for a long moment, its form completely still. Finally it spoke. "We must inform our fleet. This is not an aggressive species. This is a species that has evolved to require tools we cannot understand. We have made a grave error." "Wait," Jake said. "Fleet? How many ships?" 47 vessels, Vessa said, all moving to intercept what we believed was a violent expansionist species. Martinez's face went pale. "We have maybe 6 ships in this sector. You could wipe us out." "We will not," Vessa said firmly. "But we must establish communication protocols immediately. Our civilizations are too different. The potential for catastrophic misunderstanding is too high." Jake felt the weight of that statement. They'd almost started an interstellar war because aliens didn't understand scissors. "There's more you need to know," Martinez said carefully. "If basic tools disturb you, there are other aspects of human existence that might be equally shocking." "Such as?" Krell asked. "Reproduction," Jake said, and immediately regretted it when both commanders looked at him sharply. But it was too late. Vessa's attention was fully focused on him now. "Explain human reproduction." "Maybe we should start with something else," Martinez suggested quickly. But Carol was already accessing something, its form shifting as it interfaced with technology Jake couldn't see. "We have intercepted human data transmissions, educational materials, medical texts. We have been trying to understand your biology in preparation for contact." Bessa's form suddenly collapsed inward, shrinking to half its previous size. "Krell, no. We agreed not to discuss that particular discovery until we understood the context." "What discovery?" Jake asked, even though part of him really didn't want to know. Carol's translated voice came out strained. "The human reproductive process requires physical merging, violent physical merging, with tearing of tissue, with bleeding, with pain lasting hours, sometimes ending in death." Martinez closed her eyes. "Oh no, you use this to reproduce?" Carol continued, its voice rising in pitch despite the translator's best efforts. "You perpetuate your species through controlled violence against your own bodies?" "It's not violence," Martinez said firmly. "It's biology. It's natural." "Natural," Vessa repeated, and Jake had never heard so much horror packed into a single word. "You consider this natural," Jake tried to explain. "Our reproductive system evolved over millions of years. Yes, birth can be difficult and painful, but it's also how every human who has ever lived came into existence. It's not violence, it's life." "You described the process as labor," Corell said, clearly reading from some intercepted human text. "Labor, the same word you use for forced work. For difficult, exhausting physical tasks." "That's just etymology," Martinez protested. "Your infants cannot survive independently," Vessa added. "They require years of constant care or they perish. And the process of bringing them into existence potentially kills the parent. How is this sustainable?" "Because we help each other," Jake said. "We have doctors, nurses, medical technology. We've turned something dangerous into something manageable. That's what humans do. We face problems and solve them. With more tools," Corell said quietly. "More cutting. More violence disguised as help." "Surgical procedures save lives," Martinez countered. "Yes, they involve cutting, but they also involve healing. You can't separate the two." Vessa's form expanded again, taking on sharp angular edges. "We reproduce through division. One Valesh becomes 2. There is no pain, no blood, no risk of death. The process takes moments and requires no assistance. The new Valesh is immediately self-sufficient." "That sounds lonely," Jake said without thinking. Both aliens went still. "Lonely?" Carol asked. "Yeah," Jake said, warming to the topic despite Martinez's warning glance. "You divide alone. You don't need anyone else." Human reproduction requires partnership, cooperation. It brings people together. And yeah, it's painful and dangerous, but it's also intimate. It creates bonds. Families form around the process of bringing new life into the world. You bond through mutual suffering, Vesa said slowly. We bond through shared experience, Martinez corrected. Through caring for each other when we're vulnerable. Through choosing to create life together despite the risks. Carol's form rippled with agitation. But the female human bears all the physical burden. The male contributes genetic material and nothing more. This is inequality. Exploitation. Some would argue that, Martinez admitted. But humans have complex social structures around reproduction. Yes, females bear children, but in healthy relationships, males provide support, protection, resources. And with our technology, males can also feed infants, change them, care for them equally. We've engineered equality where biology didn't provide it. More tools, Vesa observed. More intervention to overcome biological limitations. Exactly, Jake said. We don't just accept what nature gave us. We improve it. We make it better. Or you make it more complex, Carell countered. You introduce artificial elements into natural processes. How do you know you're improving and not simply creating new problems? Martinez pulled up a chair from the scattered debris and sat down heavily. We don't always know. Sometimes we make mistakes. But we try. We learn. We adapt. It's better than accepting suffering as inevitable. We do not suffer, Vesa said. Suffering is not inevitable. Suffering is a choice. Not for us, Jake said. Pain is part of human existence. We experience it whether we want to or not. The only choice is how we respond to it. The cargo bay fell silent except for the distant sounds of the ship's damaged systems struggling to function. Somewhere crews were probably still fighting, still dying, unaware that the entire conflict had been based on a fundamental misunderstanding. We must stop the fleet, Vesa said finally, but I fear the truth may be more disturbing than the fiction. The truth? Martinez asked. We believed humans were like us, Vesa explained. We believed we could establish harmonious contact, merge our civilizations, grow together. Now we learn that everything about your existence is alien to us. Your tools, your biology, your reproduction, your acceptance of pain and death is normal. How can our peoples coexist when we cannot even understand each other's most basic functions? The same way we always do, Martinez said. We talk. We explain. We find common ground. What common ground could possibly exist? Carol asked. We grow, you cut. We merge, you separate. We divide peacefully, you reproduce violently. We are opposites. Jake stood up and walked to the breach in the cargo bay doors. Through the gap, he could see stars, distant and cold and beautiful. We both ended up here, he said quietly. We both developed space travel. We both explore the galaxy. We both try to understand the universe around us. Maybe our methods are different, but our curiosity is the same. Vesa flowed over to stand beside him, its crystalline form refracting starlight into rainbow patterns on the floor. Curiosity, yes. We share that. But is it enough? Because the alternative is war based on misunderstanding, and that's something neither of our species can afford. Carol moved to complete the circle, all four of them standing at the breach, looking out at the vast darkness between stars. There is something else, Carol said hesitantly. Something we discovered in your transmissions that we do not understand at all. What now? Jake asked. Carol's form pulsed with what Jake was learning to recognize as confusion. You have a concept called kissing. Physical contact between individuals involving the oral cavity. We have analyzed thousands of instances in your cultural transmissions, entertainment media, educational materials, historical records. It appears in contexts ranging from affection to greeting to reproduction. Martinez made a strangled sound that might have been laughter or despair. You want to discuss kissing. We must understand, Vesa said seriously. The action appears to involve exchange of biological material, including bacteria, viruses, genetic markers. In many species, this would be considered transmission of disease. Yet humans seek this action voluntarily, frequently, and appear to derive pleasure from it. It's a sign of affection, Jake explained, trying to keep his voice level. Intimacy. Connection. Connection through exchange of potentially harmful microorganisms, Carl said. This reinforces our analysis. Humans bond through shared suffering. Through voluntary exposure to risk. It's not about the risk, Martinez said, rubbing her temples. It's about trust, vulnerability, showing someone you care about them enough to be close to them. But you already are close, Vesa observed. Physical proximity does not require oral contact. It's symbolic, Jake tried to explain. It means something beyond the physical act itself. Everything about humans means something beyond the physical, Krell said, and there was something almost like frustration in the translated voice. You eat, but it is also social bonding. You reproduce, but it is also pair bonding. You fight, but it is also establishing hierarchy. Nothing is simply what it is. That's what makes us human, Martinez said. We add meaning to everything. We create culture, ritual, significance. We don't just exist, we experience. Vesa's form shifted through several configurations rapidly. A sign Jake was learning meant deep processing. This is why you use tools. Not because you need them for survival, but because you need them to create meaning, to shape your environment into something that reflects your internal world. Maybe, Jake admitted, we do tend to make things personal, individual, unique. You value difference where we value harmony. You celebrate variation where we seek unity. Is that wrong? Martinez asked. We do not know, Vesa said honestly. Our civilization has existed for millions of your years in peaceful harmony. We have never encountered conflict within our own species because we all function the same way. But we have also never created anything like your art, your music, your stories. We grow efficiently, but we do not create expressively. Jake felt something shift in the conversation. You're curious about us. Terrified and curious, Kurel corrected. You are the most alien species we've encountered, precisely because you should not be alien. You have bilateral symmetry, sensory organs, communication ability. You appear compatible with universal biological patterns. Yet everything about how you function is incomprehensible to us. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Martinez said carefully. Maybe incomprehensible doesn't have to mean incompatible. Before anyone could respond, a communication alert chimed through the cargo bay. Martinez pulled out her handheld device and her expression darkened as she read the incoming message. The fleet is demanding our surrender, she said quietly. Both our fleet and yours. Apparently command on both sides has noticed that we stopped shooting at each other and they're not happy about it. Vesa's form went sharp and angular again. This is unfortunate. Our commanders will not understand what we have learned here. They will see only security risk. Same with ours, Jake said. They'll think we've been compromised. Carol moved toward the communication equipment mounted on the cargo bay wall. We must contact both fleets simultaneously. Explain what we've discovered. They won't listen, Martinez said. Military command doesn't stop wars because soldiers had a nice chat with the enemy. Then we must give them a reason to listen, Vesa said. We must demonstrate that cooperation is possible despite our differences. Jake looked around the damaged cargo bay at the twisted metal and scattered supplies and broken equipment. We're stuck on a damaged ship in the middle of a combat zone with no way to prove anything. You fix things, Carol said suddenly. You use tools to repair and construct. Show us. Teach us how your tools work. Martinez frowned. What good would that do? Our people cannot understand your tools because we cannot understand the concept of constructive separation, Vesa explained. But if we can learn to use them, if we can demonstrate that understanding is possible, both fleets will have to reconsider their assumptions. You want us to teach you to use human tools? Jake said slowly. Tools you find horrifying and violent. Yes, Krell said simply. Martinez shook her head. That could take hours. Days. We don't have that kind of time. Then we start small, Vesa suggested. Something simple. Something that demonstrates the principle without requiring extensive training. Jake thought for a moment, then pulled out his knife again. Carol immediately recoiled, but Jake held up his other hand in a calming gesture. Rope, he said. We need rope. Martinez pointed to a storage locker that had survived the explosion. Inside were coils of synthetic cable used for securing cargo. Jake pulled out a length and held it up. Watch, he said to the aliens. This cable is too long for the current application. In your paradigm, this would be wasteful. You would grow exactly the right length and no more. But we don't have that ability. He measured out approximately 2 meters of cable, then used the knife to cut it cleanly. The aliens both flinched at the action but didn't retreat. Now the cable is the right length, Jake continued. The cutting wasn't violence. It was precision. Adaptation. We took something that wasn't quite right and made it exactly what we needed. But the remaining cable is now damaged, Krell observed. The end is frayed and irregular. Which we can fix, Martinez said, pulling out a small torch from her toolkit. She applied heat to the cut end of the cable, melting the synthetic fibers back into a smooth, sealed edge. We cut, then we repair. We separate, then we stabilize. Every action has a corresponding action that maintains integrity. Vesa moved closer, examining the sealed cable end with apparent fascination. You damage, then heal. Continuously. Continuously, Jake confirmed. Carol's form shifted, becoming more fluid, less angular. Tentatively, it reached out toward the knife in Jake's hand. Jake held it carefully by the blade, offering the handle to the alien. It feels wrong, Krell said, as its crystalline structure attempted to grip the unfamiliar object. The weight, the balance, the purpose. Everything new feels wrong at first, Martinez said. That's how learning works. Krell held the knife awkwardly, turning it over and examining it from multiple angles. Vesa moved closer, both aliens studying the simple tool like it was the most complex piece of technology in the universe. Try cutting something, Jake suggested. He pulled another piece of cable from the storage locker and held it taut between his hands. Carol hesitated, its form rippling with uncertainty. Then, slowly, it brought the knife to the cable and drew it across the fibers. Nothing happened. The cable remained intact. You need pressure, Martinez explained. Force applied in a controlled manner. The blade doesn't do the work by itself. You have to guide it. Carol tried again, this time applying more force. The knife bit into the cable and fibers began to separate. The alien made that untranslatable sound again, shock and distress mixed together, but it didn't stop. It kept cutting until the cable separated completely. I destroyed it, Krell said quietly, dropping the knife like it had burned. You changed it, Jake corrected, picking up the knife and handing it back. You adapted it to a new purpose. That's not destruction, that's transformation. The semantics do not change the action, Vesa said, but its tone was thoughtful rather than accusatory. Martinez's device chimed again. Both fleets are closing. We have maybe 20 minutes before they're in firing range of each other. Then we work fast, Jake said. He looked at the aliens. Can your bodies interface with our communication systems? Can you send a message to your fleet while we send one to ours? Possibly, Vesa said. But what message would convince them to halt hostilities? The truth, Martinez said. We show them this. She gestured to Carell, who was still holding the knife, still staring at it with horrified fascination. We show them that understanding is possible, that we can learn from each other. One alien using a knife will not stop a war, Carol pointed out. No, Jake agreed, but one alien using a knife to help humans repair a ship might. The idea hung in the air for a moment before Vesa responded. You want us to assist in repairs? Using your tools? Your violent, destructive, incomprehensible tools. Yes, Martinez said simply. Carol's form pulsed rapidly. This is insane. We do not know how to use these implements. We could cause more damage. Then we teach you, Jake said. Right now. Crash course in basic human tool use. We fix what we can in the time we have, and we broadcast the whole thing to both fleets. Let them see cooperation in action. Vesa was silent for a long moment. Then its form shifted, taking on a more compact, determined shape. This is either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. I agree. Martinez immediately began setting up communication equipment, linking the ship's external cameras to create a live feed. Jake gathered tools and materials, pulling together everything they'd need for basic repairs. Carell stood in the middle of the cargo bay, still holding the knife, looking like it was contemplating every life choice that had led to this moment. First lesson, Jake said, taking the knife back and pulling out his multi-tool. Humans use different tools for different jobs. This is called specialization. The knife cuts, the screwdriver turns, the pliers grip. Each tool optimized for specific tasks. He demonstrated each function while Vesa and Carell watched intently. Then he handed the multi-tool to Vesa. Your turn. We need to remove that damaged panel. He pointed to a section of wall that had been partially torn away by the explosion. The screws holding it in place need to be removed. Use the screwdriver attachment. Vesa's crystalline form wrapped around the multi-tool in a way that human hands never could. It took several attempts to orient the screwdriver correctly, but eventually it managed to engage the first screw. Apply torque, Martinez instructed. Rotational force, counterclockwise to remove. The screw didn't budge. Vesa applied more force and its entire body began to rotate with the effort. Jake had to steady the alien to prevent it from spinning itself across the cargo bay. Different approach, Jake said, trying not to laugh. Use your mass for leverage instead of trying to rotate your whole body. It took time, but eventually Vesa managed to remove the first screw, then the second. By the third, it had developed a rhythm. Carol watched the process intently, and when Vesa finished, the smaller alien took the multi-tool and began working on another panel. Martinez monitored her device. Both fleets are receiving the feed. No response yet. Keep broadcasting, Jake said. Show them everything. For the next 15 minutes, 2 humans taught 2 aliens the basics of using tools to repair a damaged ship. They removed broken panels, cut away twisted metal, sealed breaches with synthetic patches. The work was slow and awkward and often required multiple attempts, but gradually the cargo bay began to look less like a war zone and more like a repair site. And through it all, both fleets watched. "Incoming message," Martinez said suddenly. "Both fleets," simultaneously. She put it on speaker. 2 voices, one human command officer and one Velesh coordinator speaking at the same time in their respective languages. The translations overlapped, creating a strange harmony. This is highly irregular. Explain your actions immediately." Before Martinez could respond, Vesa spoke, its voice clear and firm. "We are learning. We request both fleets maintain position and allow this learning to continue. What we discover here may determine the future of human-Velish relations." Silence. Then the human commander spoke alone. "Lieutenant Morrison, Commander Martinez, are you under duress?" "Negative," Martinez said. "We are engaged in first contact protocols, cultural exchange. Request permission to continue." More silence. Jake held his breath. Beside him, Carol had frozen mid-action, still holding a wrench they'd been using to secure a replacement panel. Finally, both voices returned, again speaking simultaneously. "Permission granted. 1 hour. Then we expect full reports. And this better be worth delaying a war." The transmission cut off. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. 1 hour, Vesa said, "to prove that understanding is possible." "Then let's make it count," Martinez said. She picked up a plasma torch. "Next lesson is welding. Who wants to learn how to join metal using controlled heat?" Both aliens made sounds of distress, but they didn't back away. They moved forward, ready to learn, ready to understand. And somewhere high above, 2 fleets waited to see if cooperation could emerge from confusion, if bridges could be built from the rubble of misunderstanding. In the damaged cargo bay of a human freighter, surrounded by tools that terrified them and concepts they barely understood, 2 Velish began to learn what it meant to be human, to build through controlled destruction, to heal through precise violence, to create meaning through action, and, perhaps most importantly, to choose understanding over fear, even when every instinct screamed that the choice made no sense. Krell picked up the plasma torch with trembling appendages. "Show me how this works," Jake smiled. "Let's start with safety protocols."